what do you want to hear from Keir this week?
Well, he's going to set out his vision for the future of the country that he wants to lead, a society in which people can play their part. And I think that's really important. He spent the summer going out across the country, talking to people, listening to people in very different communities. And one of the things that he's heard is that people don't just want a government that's going to come in and dictate to them what their life should look like. People want a country in which they can play their part. In towns like mine, where we played our part through the mining industry in the past, people are looking for those good jobs, that sense of contribution, that their young people can stay, that they can work, that they can contribute. And that's what he's going to be setting out to the conference this week.
He's also spent the summer writing this big essay. Have you read it?
I have.
You have?
Yeah. Is there going to be a test?
What's on page 35?
I have read it. I was sent a copy earlier this week, and obviously we've been having discussions about it for some time. It's the product of what he's heard over the course of the summer, getting out and about and listening to people. And the way in which the world has changed, what he'll set out this week is not a rerun of 1997. It's not a rerun of our election manifestos in 2010, 2015, 2017, 2019. He recognises that the world has changed and moved on. People want a government that is investing in their communities, that is walking alongside them as they try to realise the ambitions that they have for their communities and for their families. And that will take investment, but it will also take a government that listens. And that's what he's going to set out this week.
Do you think the essay is ambitious?
I think it is ambitious because, well, it changes the conversation from one in which I think at times people have felt Labour really talks down to people, that we come into communities and we tell people we've got all the answers, that we're going to fix the problems that they have. His starting point is not the problems that are posed in the country, but the potential that exists there and how you help to realise that potential. I think that is quite radically different from anything that we've seen before.
Mm-hmm. You're Shadow Foreign Secretary, but there isn't very much foreign policy in this essay at all. I mean, I think Afghanistan gets a sentence, and then Britain's place in the world is not discussed in any great depth at all. Why is that?
Well, you will hear more from me
You've
about
got your
that
own
tomorrow.
essay.
I haven't got a 13,000 word essay, no, but I have got a speech to the conference tomorrow. You'll hear a bit more about that from me tomorrow. But one of the things that is really important about Keir's pamphlet is that he talks about the way in which we need to pull together, building bridges, healing divisions, ending that decade of division, which is something that we've seen not just in Britain, but between Britain and the rest of the world. We've gained a reputation in recent years as an alliance breaker rather than an alliance maker, and that has not been in Britain's interest. And so you'll hear a bit more from me about that, but that general sentiment that we do better when we pull together rather than break apart, that is one of the guiding lights of our foreign policy.
And your policy that you're talking about today as a party involves ending the charitable status of private schools. I think I've heard this policy announced at every Labour conference that I've been to over the past decade. Isn't it a bit old?
That makes me feel old, actually. I feel like we've now having a lot of these conversations over the years. I don't think it is old, because the point is not just to end the charitable status of private schools. It's what you do with the money that is then saved from that. And what Kate Green has set out is a plan to make sure that young people who have fallen further and further behind in recent years can actually get on and do well. We've seen it during COVID. There were so many young people who were just completely shut out of learning because they didn't have access to the devices, to the data, the printers, the electronics that they needed. And one of the things that this money will be used to do is to end that digital divide and make sure that young people from whatever background, whatever their circumstances, can do well. That's really important.
And you're not worried that this sends a bit of a message about aspiration to parents who might think, oh, actually, we'd like to scrape together enough money to be able to send our child to a private school. But look, Labour's putting the fees up by, 20% as a result of this policy?
Well, the point of spending the money on ensuring that every young person can do well is that you can go to your local state school and you can get a great education, great opportunities. One of the things that Kate is announcing in these plans is that you'll have access to work experience, you'll have access to careers advice. These are all things that were axed by the Tories over the last 10 years and have caused real problems for young people from all sorts of different backgrounds. And so this is an inclusive plan that makes sure that whatever your circumstances, you can get on and you can do well.
It is also a bit comfortable for the Labour Party, though, isn't it, to have a debate about how it doesn't really like private schools. I mean, what are you going to be doing tomorrow, saying you love the NHS, and then on Tuesday saying that you're going to have a foreign policy that means you're not going to talk to mean people? It seems a bit sort of comfort zone, if I'm honest.
Well, I can promise you that I'm not going to announce on Monday that we're not going to talk to mean people. In fact, one of the themes of the speech is that you go where it is hard to have those conversations, because that's what real diplomacy and real leadership looks like. And there have been times in our history when we've done that, when we've led the world on issues like climate change or multilateral disarmament or creating the Good Friday Agreement. That is exactly how we've done it, by going into difficult rooms and having difficult conversations with people with whom we disagree. But I make no apology for the fact that we want to see young people do well. Education will be a priority for the next Labour government, as it was a priority for the last. But this is different circumstances. The needs of young people are different, and we're going to make sure that we equip young people for the modern world. That might be a comfort zone for the Labour Party, but that's because it matters to us. It matters to us deeply, and unlike the Tories, we'll prioritise it.
Do you think it's okay to call the Tories scum?
It's not my preferred choice of words. I'm not very interested in insulting the Tories. I just want to get rid of them.
Right.
I think they're doing enormous damage to people in this country. I'm as angry as Angela is about the damage that they're doing, but I'm less interested in talking about them, more interested in putting forward an alternative, because in the end we can oppose the Tories as much as we like, but people only vote for an alternative, and that's what Keir and Kate Green are setting out today with these education plans.
So the reason I've asked you that, and you've mentioned Angela, is that Angela Rayner last night at a fringe meeting called the Tories scum, among a number of other names. It's not been that many weeks since your party and others paid tribute to Jo Cox in the chamber. Is it really appropriate for your party's deputy leader to be using that kind of language? This isn't, a backbench colleague. This is someone who speaks for your party and who has an increasingly prominent role in the party.
Well, it's not my way of doing politics. I'm very angry with what the Tories have done.
Do you think she should apologise?
Well, it's up to Angela. I mean, she apologised. She apologised in the chamber when she used language like that before. It's completely up to her, and you'll have to ask her what she wants to do. But I mean, from my point of view, we're not going to apologise for being angry, but being angry isn't going to get us a Labour government. We've got to show that we can provide that real alternative, and that's exactly what Keir is setting out today.
He has also been focused, Keir Starmer, on internal party politics. He spent most of the week in meetings with the unions about plans to change the way the party elects its leader and makes policy, which may be very interesting to people like you and me who've spent more than 10 years going to conferences, but to the general public it just looks like your party's having yet another fight. What's the point?
Well, it's the first opportunity that he's had to get internal changes to the rules that enable us to look outwards to the country. We can only change our rules at conference. We haven't had a conference since he was elected leader, and all of these changes taken together, not just the changes to the way we elect our leader, but the changes to the way that we select candidates and reselect MPs, put them together, and what he's trying to do is make sure that we're less focused on internal wrangling in the future and that we're able to look outwards to the country. I think that's the right thing to do. I have to be honest, it doesn't excite me enormously. I've never really paid huge amounts of attention to the leadership rules, as you can probably see, because I came a very low third in the leadership contest. Perhaps I ought to have paid a bit more attention in the past, and perhaps we'd be having a different conversation today.
That's very self-effacing. Would you have gone in at the start of conference as leader with this constitutional fight?
I mean, what would I have done as leader? I probably would have wanted to get our rule changes through quickly, so that with support from the movement, so that we could turn out to the country. I think I probably would have wanted to do it last year, and I suspect Keir would have wanted to do that last year as well, but we didn't have a conference, we couldn't do it. And I think what you'll see from him today is that he's now moving on to talking about the things that really excite him and really get him fired up, and that's the education catch-up for young people.
He hasn't got his way, though, on these rule changes, has he? He's had to compromise massively.
I mean, I sort of think we kind of got to get away from this slightly daft macho politics where the leader sets out their stall and their red lines, and then we have a huge bust up and a fight and he exerts his strength. I mean, it just isn't the real world. You know, we're a family. You know, the Labour Party is like any kind of family. We have blazing rounds behind the scenes. My family certainly does. And then we go out and we stand together and we focus our fire outwards, and that is exactly what's happened over the last few years. Every Labour leader has tried to change the leadership rules since I've been in Parliament for the last 11 years. And he brought some proposals. He said at the time he was open to a dialogue about it. They've had a dialogue, and I think he's pretty happy with where we've ended up.
Okay, finally, in a word, what's this conference going to be?
I think it's going to be a moment where we pull together and look outwards to the country and start speaking directly to the country. I think for a long time people have looked at the Labour Party and thought we're more interested in ourselves than we are in them, and I am absolutely determined that is going to change. And actually I feel a bit of a sense here, having only been here for a few hours, that all of our members feel exactly the same.
I love that. Having not had coffee yet, that's how you're feeling. Thank you very much, Lisa Nandy.
Thanks a lot.